How's it going, guys? This is Garrett Reed, and we're here with an episode with Dodge for the GarageCast. And to my right, we have Matt McAlear, the new CEO of Dodge. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to do this podcast with you. Good to meet you, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, sir. So, tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, where do I begin? I guess the easiest thing, I've been around this business since the day I was born. I'm second generation. I grew up in a family that moved across the country as my dad was working for Chrysler at the time, in and out of cities every 18 months, 12 schools in 12 years. But all I ever knew, the one thing constant, was cars and automotive.
Wow.
And after college, I tried to do something else for about 8 months, got bored out of my mind and said no. And I've been back in automotive ever since.
That's awesome. And did you make the right decision?
I did. How can you say I didn't? I get to.
This is very true. Look at the position.
And a humbling experience. The CEO of Dodge, it doesn't get much better.
Exactly. No, 100%. Did you ever foresee that was that could have been the end goal, or be in this position? Maybe not the end goal, but to be in this position.
You know, I think you dream of it, you hope for it, but there's so many things that happen, and a lot of it is luck, timing, right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Learning from the guy that used to have this job, Tim Kuniskis. You know,
yeah.
The luck of getting to know him and the tutelage that he taught. You can plan all you want, but it's just the right place at the right time. Work hard and hope for the best.
Right. So, so I'm not familiar with how this works in a corporate structure, but like with him announcing his retirement, was it more of like an endorsement from him to promote you to CEO position, or I don't know how does that work?
That's a part of it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just a part of it.
Right.
But it definitely helped, and I'm forever grateful, and I owe him a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what drew you to Dodge as a brand, growing up, or even to this point?
You know, it's that rebellious nature of this brand, and we've lost our way throughout the years. But if you look back, even in the 80s, I still had a quote when I was a little kid: Dodge boys have more fun, and Dodge girls have more fun. And back then, it was a brand that enjoyed being different.
Right.
And you know, you go back and you look and you say, well, the first Viper, 400 horsepower at the time, that was revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
That was astronomical. It stood out. It was different. All the way to the Hellcats, the Scat Packs. Dodge has always won when we do something different, and I think a little bit of that is in me. I've always said I do it my way. I try not to follow. I try to be a lead, but a leader in the way I want to lead, in the way I want to be seen. And I think it's just a natural connection to want to make this brand successful.
For sure. So, with that being said, what was your first car?
My first car was a 1992 Dodge Shadow ES. 3-liter V6, 4-door, so I could take my friends and take them to school. 5-speed, melted the tires off in 9,000 miles. And I always told my mom I was a safe driver, and then I came in and they said I need new tires, and I was trying to figure out how to tell her that, nah, it's not my fault. Bad recall on the tires, it's bad rubber.
They're defective.
But it was funny, when I was waiting for the car to show up, and after we ordered it, my mom at the time had a bright red, fire engine red Dodge Caravan. And I got to drive that for, I think, 2 months. And I was picking everybody up at the school bus stop because I had my driver's license early and taking them all to school. So, so official, I guess, first car would have been that Dodge Caravan that I drove for 2 months while I was waiting on the Shadow to get here.
That's awesome. This may sound crazy, especially for people that follow me and know me. There's something to be said about minivans. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but the utilitarianism of them, and they're just, I don't know, they're cool. Like, they're usually innovative with technology and all this kind of stuff. And you know what's crazy? I've gone on many press launches with Dodge, and when you do the reconnaissance laps at the track, 9 times out of 10, the engineers take you out in is a Dodge Caravan, and it's the old ones from like 2013. And I remember I sat in the 3rd row, and we're at like Sonoma or something, and that offhand sweeping left, I'm like, what are we doing in this minivan right now? And we're just like driving it like a race car. It's insane.
I've been on the high bank in a minivan. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The average mom would never know that their minivan could do that.
No, and minivans, talking to that, I mean, I had the great fortune. I launched the Chrysler Pacifica. I came back, I was working on Dodge, and I went over to Chrysler for a few years to launch the all-new Pacifica at the time. And I always used to tell people, Kristen will remember this, I used to tell people that we were the coolest family in the neighborhood because we had both a Town and Country and a Pacifica in the driveway, because it was, my wife had 3 Town and Countries, I had 3 Pacificas, so we had 6 minivans over the years. Jeez. And I don't know if we'll ever go back, but it was a great time and,
That's awesome.
and a lot of fun.
Okay, well, leading with that then, what are you driving now?
So I am driving my a Hornet until my new Charger Daytona gets here.
Gotcha.
And I can't wait any day now.
Yeah, and I would imagine, knowing that we saw the press launch this morning, it's going to be the EV first, the EV version first.
It will be. I've got a Scat Pack Stage 2 kit with a carbon and suede package. It is absolutely going to be awesome. I think the only person more excited are my two sons. They can't wait for it to get here.
That's awesome. What color combo did you get?
Silver with red interior.
Okay. And, you know, I'm not sure if the specs have been fully released on the car yet, but, like, are you excited about that car and that platform as an EV as opposed to the internal combustion version?
You know, I'm excited about that car, not because it's an EV, but because it's a better muscle car.
Okay.
EV is just a means to push performance.
Correct.
We are choosing to go to market completely different with this car. The current generation are 15 years old.
Yeah.
That platform was, you know, came over from the Daimler Chrysler days.
Yeah, Mercedes, the E-Class.
People have been asking us, when are you going to replace this thing? We're here. And we have spent time getting it right. From the exterior design that is absolutely iconic, from the 68 Charger, and some people see that, others just see it's a beautiful car.
Yeah.
But every single one of them is a wide body proportion, and it's a flat out better car.
Yeah.
The Scat Pack Stage 2 kit out-accelerates, outperforms today's Hellcat.
Wow.
For thousands cheaper. So if we were going to market with a true EV, we'd be talking about range and hyper mileage and drag coefficient. No, we're talking about 305s in the front, 325s in the rear,
Goodness.
wide body design, just a flat out performance car that puts a smile on your face with a Fratsonic chamber. So I'm excited to go to market with the best muscle car there is.
Yeah.
And it happens to be an EV.
So there's a few questions I want to ask off of that. So I'll be the first to say I was here 2 years ago when you guys announced here at M1 the Banshee concept, which is now what the Charger is. I was blown away. Like, I got a little inside scoop from a friend of mine of how the car was going to come out of the building. And so they had the Dodge trailer outside of the event center. And so I got up on top the trailer and I watched it as it came out the building. As soon as the nose came out, I recorded it, got the sound of the exhaust, and then as soon as it went back in, I posted it and it went crazy viral. It was the first, I'm pretty sure it was the first video out of this car with the sound. Joe Rogan ended up using it as a clip on his podcast. It was crazy. I fell in love with that concept, the design. I thought it was beautiful. You know, obviously a lot of people had their opinions on the sound and all this kind of stuff, but from the standpoint of the design and the aesthetic of the car, I thought it was gorgeous. And so I'm appreciative of the fact that there wasn't much change from that concept to what the current actual model is. Yeah. You see too many times with manufacturers where there's either the concept never comes to be or there's drastic change in the aesthetic. And it sucks because concepts are usually gorgeous vehicles, but for whatever reason, legal and all this kind of stuff, they never fully make it to production. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys for making that work, right? In terms of the design or like the not fixing what's not broke, right? A lot of people, you made the Challenger and Charger platform work for 15 years and people continue to buy it. Some people said, yeah, we'd like to innovate and see something, but like at the same time, people would continue to have kept buying that car because it worked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, how do you feel you'll be able to retain the loyalty and the brand, equity of your customer base moving into this new platform, especially given that it's going to have an EV powertrain and not a Hemi?
Yeah. Well, it's twofold. One, the performance characteristics, I think, are going to open people's eyes and make them ask the question. Mm-hmm. When they drive the car, it sells itself.
Right.
The Fratsonic chamber, it got a lot of publicity 2 years ago at Speed Week. Mm. It is so much better than that early concept. Yeah. We've talked with customers. We've taken it to SEMA. We've done research. It is authentic, it's unique, it's different. It puts a smile on your face. It makes this car a true muscle car. Mm-hmm. It's just as loud as a Hellcat from a decibel level.
Right.
So how do we attract new people? We're part of the conversation. There's debate going on. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather be part of the debate than on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. If people are talking about you, then people are listening. People are watching. We also have the ability to attract a whole new level of customers. And a couple methods. One, we have the youngest demographic in the mainstream segment. So that demographic has a higher propensity and more willing to adopt electrification. They're more willing to look at electrification as a means to go faster and better. So we may bring in a new group. We also, now with standard all-wheel drive, we can open up a whole new market as a daily driver in the northern half of the United States, where we were niche before. Same thing in Canada. So while there are definitely going to be people that take longer to adopt, that trickle down, you start bringing a few people in, you start hearing this thing, you start seeing this thing, you can't miss it. It doesn't look like anything else on the road, and that's where Dodge wins. We stand out. That F8 green out front,
right.
The Sublime greens, the orange peel outs we're coming out with. The colors alone, the sound alone, no one else replicates it. People will adopt and change over time, and if they don't adopt to BEVs soon enough, we've got the 6-packs coming next year in the second half. So we have the gas ICE powertrains, which are unique in their own right, and quite frankly, outperform the vehicles they're replacing.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the party, maybe with new technology, but better technology that enables better performance.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be the first to say I had the opportunity to drive the Hurricane high output 2 winters ago when it was released in the Wagoneer, and I was surprised by how well it pulled that vehicle. That's a big vehicle. It's an Escalade ESV. It's a big vehicle, 6,000 plus pounds, and it pulled it along on the highway like nothing, passing cars. So you take that engine out of a vehicle that weighs 6,000+ pounds and puts it in something that weighs sub 4,000 or whatever it weighs potentially. It's gonna move out.
It's gonna move.
And again, we know the high output's already gonna make 550, 531, given the crate that we're using right now for roadkill. And we're just breaking the ice. Like literally, we're the first people to use this in a swap configuration out of an OEM vehicle. We don't even know what the potentials are, right? We're gonna be the ones that use that as a test bed. So I'm personally excited because again, yes, I'm a muscle car guy. I love V8s to the death, right? But at the same time, I also love the ability to introduce new technology, particularly if it's still internal combustion, right? You got to take your wins where you can get them, and still make power that you would have made, if not more, than the predecessor V8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And one of the coolest features coming with the 6-packs is the ability to send 100% of that power to the rear wheels. You can put it in rear-wheel drive mode.
Okay, so it's going to be an all-wheel drive.
It's an all-wheel drive standard.
Okay.
You can put it in rear-wheel drive mode.
Interesting.
That's unheard of.
That's cool. So it's almost like selectable 4-wheel drive, but it's unique in that sense of you can. Okay.
It's a muscle car.
That's cool.
Sometimes,
well, there you go.
Sometimes you want that, you need that grip to pick up and go, but other times you want a little slippage.
Right. Well, that's news to me. I had no idea that was going to be the case. That's actually really cool. Have you had any experience in racing in general, like if road course or drag racing? Do you prefer anything?
I'm not an extensive racer. I've been through a lot of schools. I've been down to Bondurant before it was Radford. I've been down to Radford. I've gone through the courses. I like to soak up as much of it as I can. I did have the great fortune last year. I was down at Radford. I took my son down. He turned 16, and I took him down to go to teen driving school and car control school to learn how to truly handle a car. And they had an opening in the Demon School, and it's limited by the number of seats. I jumped in, and I spent the day going through. This was prior to the Demon 170 that's open now. It was the Demon School, and NHRA was down there, and I qualified. I got my competition street license.
Gotcha.
So I ran 2 passes in the 9s. So I got my 9-second license, which was pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
And I didn't realize how much truly went. I've been going to the drag races, since I was young, and everybody thinks you just pull up and you hit the gas pedal, you hold on, you go straight, and it's so much more than that, as you know.
Yeah.
And just the importance of the burnout. And that was the important. And the one thing that caught me by surprise is I spent more time in the car was the G-forces in the launch of the Demon. As it threw you back when you hit that accelerator, your foot needs to go forward, but everything else is going backwards.
Yeah.
And I had to find a way not only to nail the burnout but brace the side of my leg on the tunnel and be able to, while the rest of your body's going in reverse, my foot's going down.
Exactly.
And the first 2 passes were in the 10s. I had 4 chances. I had to get 2 out of 4 to qualify. The first 2 were in the 10s, kept improving, and then nailed the last 2 perfect runs in the 9s, got the license, and I was pretty excited. That's
so cool. Have you thought about adding a Demon into your collection?
I have, and I talked about it. I had the opportunity with my wife, and if there's one car, I got two sons that are approaching college age, so I need to say more about what's coming my way from an expense structure.
Yeah.
But if there's one car that when the time is right, and it's a Viper.
Okay.
And nothing better than that one right there.
That's right.
That's it. That's the car.
The fifth gen is an amazing vehicle. I've had the opportunity to drive 3 generations of the Viper. I drove a first generation, which I feel like it's definitely what falls under that mantra of don't meet your heroes, right? Because again, as we can look right behind, over here, there's a poster of the first gen, and it was one of those things growing up for me. I grew up in the mid to late 90s, and it was on those justification for higher education posters, right?
Oh yeah.
And so it's such an iconic style, but it was fast in its time. It's just like if you go back and drive a muscle car from the 60s and 70s. Yeah, they had 450 horsepower, but it's not as refined as 450 horsepower today. A turbo 4-cylinder car will beat most muscle cars from back then. It's kind of silly. Same thing happened with the Viper. I drove it, the first one, I was like, I don't know, man. It wasn't that great. So then I drove a Gen 2 Viper. Again, it was a beat example. It had a lot of miles. So I actually was with Ralph Gilles at the time. This was earlier this year, out in Arizona for Barrett Jackson, and he has the first Gen 5 off the assembly line. And I was at dinner with him, and I was telling him about my experiences with Vipers, and I was like, man, I'd love to drive a 5th gen just to get to see what this is much better than the previous ones. And he told me, he said, I'll let you drive mine. And of course, somebody tells you that, you're like, all right, sure. And sure enough, I went to his house for brunch the next day, and somewhat through the day, he was like, you ready to go drive it? I'm like, yeah. And so he graciously gave me the keys to his Viper, and me and my buddy ended up taking it out. And to your point, it is incredible. Leaps and bounds over the first and second, probably the third and fourth too, but it's such a good car. So I agree. That is the one to have.
That's the car.
Yeah. Any particular color combo?
That one right there is super appealing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
You gonna ask Zach to maybe get it?
If he ever decides he wants to part with it, I give him my number.
There you go. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but where I think this is the question that obviously the fan base, and you might reiterate what you said, but where do you see Dodge going as a brand, in the future, right? Currently, right now, the only new vehicle on the offered is the Hornet, and later this year will be the new Charger. Where do you see the brand going, and what do you expect to see from the follower base and the customers?
Yeah, the foundation that we've laid over the last 10 years with this brand, and as we distilled it down from predominantly sales of the Journey and Caravan. And then we brought in the Hellcat with the 15 MCAs on the Charger and Challenger. And then we brought in the Scat Packs. We brought SRT back into the brand. And this has been a journey. This isn't something that happened overnight. And every year we continue to push. And whether it was the Super Stocks or the Demons or the Demon 170s, we've always found a way to innovate and just keep pushing the needle. Nothing revolutionary, but evolutionary. Yeah. And that's no different. I'm not coming in and changing. I believe in what we've done. I'm proud to say I was part of what we've done for the last 10 years and take a lot of pride in that. And we're going to continue that. We will bring vehicles to market that look like a Dodge, drive like a Dodge, feel like a Dodge, and sound like a Dodge. And that's our mantra. And we will continue to innovate, and we'll continue to build this brand, and we're going to bring some new people along for the ride, and we're going to keep the old ones and bring them into the fold as well. We've got a lot to stay busy with direct connection, with Hurricane motors, as you know, with Elephants, and the ability that we're working on for the 6-packs that we're bringing to market to make those, to let people personalize them and do performance their way. This brand is just getting started. It's 110 years old this year. We've come so far, but there's still a lot to do, and it's not going to happen overnight. But we're going to keep moving the ball down the field, making progress, pushing boundaries, and just being a little crazy. Yeah,
and I would like to mention, off of what he said, the fact that the Hemi is no longer offered in a production car doesn't mean that it's gone.
Right.
That was I think that's something maybe lost in translation, right? So the beautiful thing about the direct connection program coming back is that you have the ability to buy those engines for your vehicles to swap in whatever it may be. They're still available. It's just maybe not in obviously an OEM capacity.
Right.
So that's reassuring to the people that obviously still love the V8 and want it to still be around, right? So I'm glad that you guys do that. One other question I wanted to ask, because you mentioned SRT, I know that it has quote unquote dissolved, I suppose, or absorbed into another department or something. Do you think that may come back as its own entity at some point in the future with product?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer, a solid answer for that, other than I can say the spirit of SRT, the engineers that eat, breathe, live, sleep, power, and performance are still there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go anywhere.
Right.
We restructured a little bit. We moved them.
Of course.
Quite frankly, with COVID, we got rid of a building and moved them around.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're stopped pushing the boundaries of performance and developing cars. And you look at it, as we talked about, the Scat Pack we're launching is better than today's Hellcat.
Yeah.
SRT's not going anywhere.
Right.
We're not walking away from the SRT. That Banshee that we revealed 2 years ago at Speed Week, there'll be an SRT of these cars.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's coming.
Well, that's reassuring to know for the people that obviously know that name, right? They associate that with the brand. Well, Matt, I appreciate your time. It was a pleasure
terrific.
meeting you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for this opportunity. This was a shock to me when I got the opportunity to do this, so I'm thankful. And you guys will hopefully enjoy the racing this weekend and everything coming from Dodge in the future.